Welcome to Innovation Chats with Dr. Abigail Joseph, the Innovation Doctor.
Okay.
Cool.
Hey.
All right. Well, let's officially just dive in since I
Okay.
pressed the button before I should have.
It's okay. That's like an IRL moment, especially when we talk about our educators, right? In the classroom and they're trying to do something and they got 25 students looking at them like, what you gonna do?
Right. So, good morning, everyone. And I'm Dr. Abigail Joseph, the Innovation Doctor, and welcome to my first ever Innovation Chat. Our topic today is storytelling, and I'm so excited to have our special guest, Dr. Jennifer Chatmon, with us today to talk a little bit about how her innovating in storytelling and the things that she's been doing around storytelling this morning. Let's just start. Jennifer, how do you know me? Let's get that out of the way so people actually know.
Right. So we know each other from the idyllic setting of childhood that is known as South Orange and Maplewood, New Jersey. Met in middle school. So South Orange and Maplewood are just these wonderful, some of it is nostalgia, and I'm sure you do the same thing now that you're in education, like you reflect on our experience, but it really was like magical, right? We had we had a progressive community with some voices that were very consistent and strong about bringing students together from different backgrounds and giving us as much exposure as possible. I mean, in middle school, we took like woodshop and
I think about that all the time.
I mean, I was like, dude, we had like saws, dangerous equipment.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah. And it's amazing. It was a true middle school experience. We had clubs, and then moving on to high school where we still had musical theater and then even like, the TV production and the animation. So I think that we had a very rich childhood experience. And even being like just demographically, I think that, the folks of color, we really only represented about 30% of the population school-wise, but it never felt isolating. I felt like our little, cluster of Black folks was strong enough to never feel like we were the only ones. Knew we weren't the majority, but definitely did not feel alone.
Yeah, there definitely was a strong enough numbers matter.
Yes.
And we did have the numbers to make it feel not an isolating experience, which I am thankful for. So I just put us on gallery view, which is exciting. Hey. So now actually both of us are on the screen at the same time. All right, so we're here to talk about innovating in storytelling, and you recently created and published a book.
I did.
Called My Wish for You.
Woo!
Look at that.
Look at that.
I'm so happy to see it. I ordered mine and I thought it would get here, and it's, shipping.
Yes, shipping. Right.
Always. And so what made you want to write the book and create this storybook?
You know what? It's interesting. What made me write the book is what clicked for me as an educator to begin with, right? Because I didn't grow up saying, I want to be a teacher, right? It kind of just happened because I was singing and some bandmates of mine were like, hey, because gigs aren't continuous, right? or aren't always consecutive, rather. And so a bandmate of mine was like, hey, you should go be a substitute teacher. Oh, wait, disclaimer. You may hear the screams of a 9-year-old. He's upstairs talking. They have him and his cousins have their weekly. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Technology. Sorry, go ahead.
Got you. No, but my son and his cousins have their weekly Saturday morning link up. And so they're up there squealing. But my bandmate was like, oh, you should go substitute teach. And I was like, no, why would I do that? Like, it's not my thing.
You're like,
but the gig,
I was a kid once. I know.
Yeah, like, nah, I'm not doing that. So I actually ended up doing it, right? Because I have a lot of educators in my family. My aunt, who still is in New Jersey, she was an English teacher in East Orange for many years. And her parents, so like my grandparents, my paternal grandparents or grandfather, 6 to 7 of his siblings taught in the Birmingham segregated schools, right?
Wow.
And so my aunt was like, you should go be, you should do this. Da, da, da. And I was like, no, I'm going to go back to the stage. But the gigs were getting further and further apart. And so I was in the classroom, and it clicked for me when I realized that being in front of a room of students was very much like being on stage, right? It was about audience. It was about engaging them. It was about what I brought to the proverbial stage to make it an experience, or an enjoyable experience for everyone. So when that clicked for me, I was like, oh, okay. Right. And so it totally shifted how who I became, or who I'm becoming as an educator. But the songs that I wrote and the singing, like all of that didn't stop. But I didn't know, or I didn't see how to bring them together really until my son was born, because he'll be 10 next year. But, when he was cooking, I was like, writing. I was like, I'm going to write all these stories, and I'm going to do this. And, you have all these wonderful ideas when the baby's inside, right?
The reality sets in.
Yeah. And then it's like, no, actually, you're going to try to sleep and take a shower. That's what you're going to try to do. So
Right.
I kept the stories. And I had ideas about like a series of books, featuring him, because what I did recognize when he was young and I was looking for books to read to him, there weren't a lot. And there still aren't. There are more now, but there just aren't a lot of books for children of any color that aren't like historical in nature. You know what I mean? It's like, he's 18 months. Do we really need to tell Harriet Tubman's story? Like,
No.
so it's either like a caricature or an animal, but not like an actual black face. And that's what made me such a fan of Ezra Jack Keats and his main character, Peter, and The Snowy Day, and his whole series, because those were books that my brother was given as a young person so that he could see himself. So it was important for me, as I, continued through my education journey and learned more about reading and the process and the cognitive development. I was like, our babies need to see themselves. Like, it was more than just anecdotal feeling, right?
Yeah.
And so I was able to link up with this publisher also from New Jersey, which was great, because even though I'm in California, I'm still a Jersey girl.
You're always back on the East Coast.
Yes. I love being here in California, but it's still, Jersey raised us, right?
Yeah.
So it was important for me to still be connected. And I worked with the publisher, and they were super like understanding, because I was saying to them from the beginning that with the visuals, it was important that one, the two characters look like us. We got a suntan, but
yes,
but they do. It's
like
still us, because I sent them reference photos. And this is actually my son before he stopped wearing glasses, which is a whole different story thread. But I wanted to keep him in the glasses because of our experience with them. But I was telling the illustrators, I was like, the hair has to look textured. It has to be representative. I need to see my gold earrings up my ear, because I recognize that I'm not the only single mother out here, living in a city or living here or just in this experience. And I wanted something that both mother and son could see themselves in.
That's beautiful. We have a comment from Ain. I'm sorry if I butcher your name, but saying that they had the same issue looking for books for their son.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I remember when we still lived in New Jersey, we drove to Philly it was like a super long title, African American Children's Book Fair. We went to some random high school that they were having a book fair. They had collected, authors who published books that focused children with melanin. And the line, it was the winter too, it was February. Right. Okay. And the line was like 150 to 200 people deep to get in there. And while standing in line in the cold, I met people of all hues that were, most of whom were educators who work with children of color, that were there looking for these texts to have in their classroom. So there's definitely a shortage.
Yeah, that need. So great. Can you tell me a little bit more? So I heard the inspiration
Mhm.
was songwriting and
Yes.
having this ability to like connect songwriting with education and this need for more representation in children's
Mhm.
books. How did you go about generating this particular story? So I'm sure you had journals and journals of writing.
Yes, I
And
do.
so how did you come to this place of my wish for you?
Okay, so that's absolutely right. I have two journal worlds, right? I have the what I call the morning pages, if anyone is familiar with that process.
Yes, the artist's
And
way.
yes, honey. And
Mm.
so I get up and I write those 3 pages every day. And I'm actually looking up on my bookshelf the little container that has my journals from like 5th grade,
Oh, wow.
because my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, um, she gave me a diary, and I'm like looking at it right now. She gave me a diary when I was in the 5th grade,
The secret little
and
lock,
yes, it
the
did.
broken key. Yep.
Yes, and I started then, and so I've always had that part. And then as a songwriter, I had the songwriting journal. And when I was pregnant and I was just collecting all of those things, those ideas were coming, and still coming. So I have like because I can't carry like a stack of books like Laura Ingalls, right? Like
Yeah.
I
The
gotta
reality.
streamline.
We're a little older. The
Yes,
back might start hurting, but yeah.
exactly. But I'm still like, I still prefer to write, right?
Yeah.
So I have a thinner journal that I carry for the songwriting and just the book ideas. And so my wish for you specifically grew out of conversations, like let's say when Hendrix was, able to start speaking, it was like, good morning, baby. How did you sleep? Did you dream? And
Mm.
it was like, and it's this morning he crawled in my bed, and now, oh, he says it to me. And
Aw,
it's the sweetest thing. Sweetest thing. Good
that is
morning, mommy.
delightful.
How did you sleep? Did you dream? Like, he literally asked me this morning about my dreams. So it grew from there. And so, as their brains are developing and their world is growing, his language was growing and the imagery was growing. And so, it became this back and forth that was just this really, really precious time for us in the morning, which was also part of the motivation for this particular story, My Wish for You, to help cultivate those moments for other caregivers. Because
Mm.
in education, we see, or not even see, we know the value that the home brings, or the impact, let's say the impact that the home brings to the student's success just as a human, right?
Exactly.
And with all of the pressures that we all have, it is so important that we find those, I call them at work touch points, that we
Mm.
have those touch points with people, period, but specifically with children that we're responsible for, like, providing a life for,
Exactly.
to help them settle and to help them think and to grow that space that they can have in themselves to go back to when the world is crazy,
Mm.
you know?
That's beautiful. Yeah, the connection piece is such a touchstone for everyone, right? Being
Mhm,
able to connect either at home or at work.
mhm,
Um, and um, that piece is really centering and beautiful. So we touched a little bit about your creativity process.
mhm.
I completely love it. Let's talk about like the innovation of working. So nothing gets done without a village, right? You did
Yes,
not publish this book, come up with this idea, write this
right,
story, and then all of a sudden you had a book.
right.
So tell us a little bit about your process about working with the illustrator and the publishing company.
That was great. It was a learning experience. So it's like I had the text, right? And much like when I was writing songs for the studio, I didn't really care about anything else, right? Like I was just like, here are my lyrics, I'm ready. I don't care about what you're doing with the music. What time do I have to show up? So I had to learn that in book publishing, that's not a cost efficient way to be, right? Because not only is it not cost efficient, it's not honoring your creativity, right? Because then you're putting the dream into somebody else's hands. So I had the text, and the publishing assistant that I was working with, she really pushed me. She probed, like, well, what do these images look like? You know, you have the words, so what do the images look like? And I was like, well, I don't really draw. That's not in my wheelhouse. So then I was like, now I had to go and like search for images, right? And I had to think about the placement of, because now it's a book. It's not just written as a poem in the page of one of my journals. So it's now we have to talk about spacing the words out. Where do you want to punctuate a thought or an image? And it was just really eye-opening. Like, it informs my writing, not that it changes it, but it elevated my game, right? So that I'm able to start with the text, but know that that's just really the foundation of creating this experience.
Right. That, yeah, I've never thought about that in terms of book. Well, I've never written a book, but except for the ones, very funny that you said you had your little diary that your aunt gave you. The other day, I was writing a chapter for a book, and I was unearthing some stuff from childhood. And you know how I used to make those little books where you sew the paper
Yes,
together to the
yes.
cardboard edges and cover it with wrapping paper and a little duct tape, and you had
Uh-huh. You were a publisher. What you mean? You were a publisher.
Innovation at its finest.
That's right.
I had pulled one of those out. So I was just linking that to the process of actually taking your words and having to then figure out what the imagery is. And I really liked what your publisher told you about, like, not putting your dream into someone else's hands.
Yeah.
And in this whole process of innovating, it's really important to stay true to who you are and know what it is you really want to create. But again, it goes back to, you can't do it on your own. So you're going to have to reach out and pull other people in.
Yes.
And so I like this idea of how you were able to pull them in, but still hold on to your creativity, your creative vision, and learn that you had to set that creative vision for yourself, that it wasn't okay to just take the words and hand them off to someone else. Otherwise, you might have ended up with some illustrations that
didn't look like us.
Completely. So let's talk a little bit. I know you do a lot more outside of writing children's books.
A little bit.
So tell us a little bit more about any other storytelling endeavors, innovations that you are currently working on.
Well, so outside of the children's book, because I have My Wish for You, which I'm tapping it right now, My Wish for You, which is out. I have two different directions that I'm working on. One is an early reader chapter. And here's the thing, I think when we're exercising our creativity, we should really speak to what is speaking to us, right? Like, what is it you're looking for? What is whispering to you at night? What do you want to see? So the books that I write, I did my research. And so the publishing world has these different age groups that they say readers fall into, right? Because they have to create these generalizations so that they can market the books. But then I'm basing it off of the experience with my son. And it's like, not really, because he was reading, and that's just him, that's how he came, right?
Yeah.
But he was reading, early readers in chapters far before the grade range that they gave, right? So for me, it's just important to write the book because there's someone else that's out there. So that reads similarly or is growing at that similar pace. So I have one story called South for the Summer that is based on the summers that my brother and I used to spend in Virginia, where literally my mother on the last day of school would be like, come on, y'all, let's go. And we get in the car
We're
and
going.
we're going. And we're driving to Virginia, and I'll see you at Labor Day. Right.
Right.
And so I'm pulling from those experiences to create this growth relationship between the main characters, which are brothers and sisters, right? Very much based on myself. And then the other is a series that I'm working on that's like, and it's interesting because I'm working with my son on this. So it's like sci-fi, archaeological type adventures of a little boy that looks just like this. So that we have these experiences, because I look at what he's reading and, you know, they're interesting, but they still don't look like us, right? So I have that happening over there. But also I use storytelling. It's funny because I was thinking about this last night at happy hour with my department.
All good things happen during happy hour.
They do. But like I always fall back, not I would say fall back, I always pull from storytelling, right? Because if we think about stories just in the trajectory of the development of society, we use stories to connect us and to teach us and to warn us, right? And to encourage us. Stories have always been there. So people at work will always be like, Chatmon always got a story, because I start with that, because when we have, besides the fact that I just like telling stories, but when we start with the story, we have an opportunity for people to see themselves and then to start to build that connection, right? So if I'm a high school assistant principal, I have to talk to students about behavior sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I'm totally that person that's like, let me tell you a story. One time I did blah, 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 and you could see like the recognition in their eyes, like, wow, that also happened to you. And, there's the opportunity to build that connection. So I do it with students. I do it with the teachers that I work with. I hate the word supervise, but I work with primarily, in addition to a whole bunch of other stuff, but the English department and the special education department at my high school, right? So I'm like in the best area to tell stories.
Yes.
Right. So stories when I'm speaking with students one-on-one, stories when I go to visit classes, right? And stories when I'm talking to the teachers that I work with and then other admin, because there's that opportunity to bring folks in and say, hey, you know what, we are the same. We've had similar experiences. There's an opportunity for us to connect. I'm not other. For wherever reason you may have placed me there. We have far more reasons to connect and move together than we do to not.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. If you are joining us and you have a question, please put it in the chat. I see someone on there. But if you don't have a question, that's okay too, because we are about to wrap things up soon. So I'll give them a little time because I know there's like a 15-second delay.
Yeah, and they got to get their fingers
working, warmed up.
I had to because even though I'm up early, I still was like, I had to talk, right? Because I was like, I didn't, the morning voice, because, we're on the West Coast. So it's like 8 something. I did my little short yoga practice because that was also something I did during the beginning of the pandemic, is become a certified yoga teacher so that I could also bring that into the practice with my students, right? With my son, with myself. Right?
Yeah, with yourself, most importantly.
Yeah. So came down, did my little restorative yoga practice, and I was like, okay.
And you were all set.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. So I don't think there's any questions from the chat, but I'll leave you with the last word. Is there anything that else you want to share with our audience about storytelling? Actually, I do have one more question. I lied.
Oh, okay.
I lied. What is one place that if a person's listening to this and watching this later on and they are thinking, wow, I've always wanted to write a storybook. I don't know where to begin. What's a piece of advice that you have for someone who's a budding storyteller or wants to tap into their storytelling creativity?
You know what? Ironic, not even ironically, I'm going to tell you because this elevated my game too. On, I want to say maybe it might be Khan Academy. They have like Pixar University, right? And Pixar, whether you have a child or not, you may have seen a Pixar movie, right? And they have a specific outline for the story arc. And so I went through all of, maybe it's like 4 or 6, I don't remember how many videos, right? But I went through their little Pixar University, and it's free. Went through the university. I wrote, again, because I'm a writer, I wrote everything down. And then I went back and watched the movies with that information of their outline. And it changed so much for me because I was like, it formalized it, right? Because I think sometimes, well, one, people may feel apprehensive because they feel it's this huge endeavor, right? And it's not. Is there work involved? Sure, right? But the core is that story that won't let you go. So if you keep hearing it, you keep seeing it, it's like I said earlier, whispering to you at night, just write it down. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be this. Oh goodness, sorry. Okay, my cousin. Calling. But it doesn't have to be perfect. Get it out of you, right? Because it's kind of like stress. Stress is going, if you don't work it out, it's going to find a way out. So I feel the same way with our creative energy. You must find a way to get it out and then learn how to manipulate it in a way that more people can enjoy it. And I think that Pixar University is an absolute wonderful place to start.
That's really great advice, because I believe that people think that innovating is hard and something they can't do, but really just takes practice and are willing to take a little risk, right? You had no idea how you were going to publish this book.
No, I sure didn't. I sure did not.
And you were just like, but I'm going to do it.
Yes.
I'm just going to ask the people until I figure it out. And
right. And I think also just like, because you know, what's the saying? Like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? How do you take a 10,000 step journey? One step at a time. If you are just committed to at least taking one step every day, you will get there, right? And that's where the yoga comes in, like calming yourself, because I think that we want to, it's like, oh my God, I have this idea and I want to get to the end immediately. I don't know how to get to the end, but I want it to happen now. That's not real life. First of all, commit to the journey, be present in the journey, and just continue moving forward. And it will be what it's supposed to be, but you just have to trust it.
I love that. And I'm going to bring up one other comment that Ayn has.
Hey, girl.
Hello, Ayn. Thank you for letting me know how to pronounce your name. She says that this book would be an amazing addition to Scholastic, so that teachers have more books of diversity available in their classroom. So
I think that's a great idea. Who has a Scholastic contact? Hello.
All right. If you have some contact at Scholastic, please let Dr. Chatmon know, so that she can put that out there so that more people have access to her book.
That would be great. I'd love to partner with Scholastic and get these other ideas. I mean, when I tell you I have a journal full of stories and board books and picture books ready to go, they are ready to go.
That is wonderful. And Ayn, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, love.
I'm going to leave us with that last word that you just said, which was just trust in the outcome. Put it out there, and it will be what it's going to be, and trust in that outcome.
You must.
So thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you.
It's always a pleasure to connect with you, and I see us connecting more and more.
Oh, you know it. When the world opens up and I come up here.
Jersey and California.
That's right.
It could be a book.
Have you ever noticed like the shape of the states actually look like mirror reflections?
Yes, the shapes are.
Yeah, I was like, see, it was meant to be.
It was. All right. Thank you for joining us, Ein. And we will be out as soon as I can figure out how to not go live. Talk about innovating, right?